This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Mateli Edwards. Tonight's top stories. A powerful earthquake struck central Myanmar, damaging the capital Naypyidaw and neighbouring Bangkok, where a skyscraper under construction collapsed. Aftershocks were also felt in Yunnan, China. And wildfires in South Korea's North Gyeongsang province, burning for nearly a week, are now contained, though firefighters are still battling blazes in the south, with most fires under control. Now, China warns the U.S. and the Philippines not to stir trouble in the South China Sea after America's top diplomat calls on Manila to stand firm against Beijing's threats. Meantime, President Xi Jinping promises China's doors will open wider and wider as Beijing woos foreign businesses amid an intensifying trade war with the U.S. And that open door extends to Bangladesh as President Xi hosts the country's chief advisor, Muhammad Yunus, pledging to deepen cooperation and push bilateral relations to a new level. A 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit central Myanmar today, causing damage in the capital Naypyidaw and Bangkok in neighbouring Thailand, while tremors were felt as far away as Yunnan in China. The epicenter was in central Myanmar, about 17 kilometres from Mandalay, its second largest city. While states of emergency have been declared in half a dozen areas in Myanmar, with Army Chief Min Aung making a rare appeal for global aid. Bangkok has been declared a disaster area. And CNA's Saksit Sombat joins us live now from Bangkok. Saksit, first of all, walk us through the extent of the damage, the injuries or casualties, if any, in Bangkok.
Now, it's still very difficult to assess the overall damage and the extent of the consequences of the earthquake that we have felt here in the capital of Bangkok. But behind me, this is one of the most visible damages. This is the construction site. This is supposed to be the future headquarters of the State Audit Office. A skyscraper 35 stories high collapsed under the earthquake that we have seen today on this Friday afternoon. At least 50 construction workers were said to be inside that building at that time. Very few have made out. Many are feared still inside. According to Bangkok Governor Chachat Sitipan, 3 bodies have been retrieved from there. But overall, in the other parts of the city, in Bangkok as well, we have seen pictures and social media posts of structural damage to buildings. We've seen interior furniture being tossed around, and also streets suddenly not being smooth anymore. So it is still too early to make an overall assessment of the damage. There has been some damage, but nowhere near as bad as the pile of rubble behind me now.
Yeah, so Saksit, there's structural damage. There's still construction workers. They're possibly trapped in that collapsed building. So do we know what actions are the Thai government taking or planning to take?
Now, the Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra, who has been on a trip in Phuket, has declared a state of emergency for Bangkok, and also the Bangkok Governor Chachat Sitipan has declared the city to be a disaster zone. For legally speaking, this will enable authorities to do whatever is necessary in order to mediate and in order to alleviate the consequences of the earthquake, not only here in Bangkok, but also in other parts of the country, even though those declarations are only for the capital themselves, even though other places have been told to do as if a state of emergency has been declared. But there's also been some criticism against the government as well, because there's been still no cell broadcast, so still no unified emergency messaging system in place here in Thailand. This would have been a situation where immediate messaging via SMS, via mobile phones would have been necessary. But as of now, even though it's 2025, we still have no such system here in place in Thailand yet. Now, but that criticism or that will be discussed later. Now it's about not only assessing the damage, but also to tending those that are still in need of help, especially the construction workers that are feared trapped behind me.
Well, thanks a lot for that update. Saksit Sombat, live in Bangkok. Now, deadly wildfires that raged across South Korea's southeast for a week are now mostly contained. Major blazes in North Gyeongsang province have been put out, while those in South Gyeongsang are largely under control. But the disaster is leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. CNA's Lim Yun-suk has more.
All-out efforts are being made to put out as much of the fire as possible. Overnight rain, though not much, had helped improve visibility on Friday and slowed down the strong winds that had hampered firefighting in the past few days. More than 120 helicopters are trying to extinguish the flames, while firefighters are working non-stop amid concerns that the weather conditions could quickly change against them. The fire has damaged land and homes and destroyed many cultural assets, such as this ancient temple in Uiseong County. Out of 30 buildings here at Gongsa Temple, only 9 are still standing. The rest, including 2 national treasures, were charred. Now, some of the treasures here, including a stone Buddha statue, were relocated to other temples around this area. Now, this Gongsa Temple has been around for more than 1,000 years. The scenes of devastation at the heritage site have left people here in despair.
지금 이제 뭐 어떻게 말로 표현할 수 없는 참담한 어떤 이런 상황이죠. 뭐 천년의 고찰인 이런 이제 또 거기다 또 교구 본사인 이런 곳에 이렇게 큰 피해를 보고 있다는, 아마 이 종단 이래로 이렇게 본사가 뭐 화마로 이렇게 덮치는 경우는 좀 처음이어서 저희들도 어떻게 이제 대처해야 될지 이런 것들도 이제 다 논의를 좀 해야 되고.
Before the blaze, Gongsa Temple had about 120,000 visitors every year, such as 82-year-old Jin Yeo-shin.
한 40년 됐습니다. 여기 입문화가. 이 절에 다닌 지가, 공사 다닌 지가 한 40년 됩니다. 마음이 한정없이 말로는 표현을 못합니다. 너무너무 가슴 아프고 눈물밖에 안 납니다.
National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik was here on Friday afternoon and was shown the damage. He told CNA it was heartbreaking to see what had become of the temple, which was the pride of many South Koreans.
이 기후 위기 때문에 변화된 기후 조건에서 이런 큰, 지금까지 상상하지도 못했던 화마가 왔는데, 이 일을 계기로 해서 첫째는 대한민국이 이런 기후 위기에 대응하는 화재에 제대로 대처할 수 있는 여러 법적, 제도적 장치를 잘 갖춰야 되겠다 하는 생각을 했고요. 국민이 사랑하는 이 문화유산 소실을 안타까워 하면서 다시는 이런 일이 발생되지 않도록 현장을 잘 관리해야 되겠다 하는 생각입니다.
He thanked the public and firefighters for risking their lives to preserve the heritage site.
국회가 이런 일이 발생되지 않도록 정부와 함께 뒷받침을 해서 제도를 빨리 정비해야 되겠다 이렇게 생각하고, 국민이 안심할 수 있도록, 또 고은사뿐 아니라 이 주변의 많은 피해자들이 일상으로 돌아갈 수 있도록 하는 지원에 대해서도 꼼꼼히 잘 챙겨야 되겠다는 생각을 현장에 와서 하고 있습니다.
Firefighters remain at the temple on alert as South Korea's authorities try and save as many of its other national heritage sites from its worst wildfires ever. Lim Yun-suk, CNA, Uiseong County, South Korea.
China has issued a strong warning against stirring up conflict in the South China Sea. Beijing was responding to remarks made by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in his ongoing visit to Manila. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says there are no issues with freedom of navigation and overflight in the disputed waters. It also called on Washington to stop what it calls instigations in the region. Mr. Hegseth has vowed to strengthen military ties with Manila to thwart off threats from China. The U.S. defense chief also reaffirmed Washington's ironclad defense commitment to Manila.
Deterrence is necessary around the world, but specifically in this region, in your country, considering the threats from the Communist Chinese, and that friends need to stand shoulder to shoulder to deter conflict, to ensure that there's free navigation.
It's not merely the security of either the United States or of the Philippines. We are facing a common threat, which now is the overreach of the Communist Party of China. So the Indo-Pacific, the rule of international law, freedom of navigation, and individual personal freedoms are what are at stake here.
And for more, CNA's Buena Banal joins us live now from Metro Manila. Buena, so Mr. Hegseth says the U.S. Will boost military ties with the Philippines, but how exactly is that going to happen?
One of the plans unveiled during Mr. Hegseth's visit is this advanced bilateral combat operations training between elite forces of the United States and the Philippines in the extreme northern group of islands of Batanes here in the Philippines. And Batanes is strategically located because it's adjacent to its north to Taiwan. And previous U.S.-Philippines military drills on that group of islands were focused on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, which are mere civil military operations. This time around, the planned training will focus on targeted combat operations. In fact, in a joint statement by these two countries, they said that these elite forces will have to train so that they can work alongside each other to conduct, quote-unquote, high-end operations in the Indo-Pacific. Note that in the wording of what these operations are, the location was not limited to the Philippines, but to the region as a whole. In fact, in that joint statement, the focus was on the Indo-Pacific and not just on the South China Sea. The Indo-Pacific was mentioned 7 times, the South China Sea 1 time, and in relation to an oft-repeated stance that it is covered by the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty of these two countries. That focus on the Indo-Pacific is a departure from previous joint statements of the multiple visits of former U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III, and this is significant given the geopolitical underpinning of this being more regional now in terms of deterrence by these two longtime military allies.
But having said that, Buena, President Donald Trump's America First stance has certainly raised doubts, right, over the United States' commitment to the region. So can Manila count on Washington?
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. called the United States today the greatest force for peace in the region. And part of the gratitude that was expressed by Philippine Secretary of Defense Gilberto Teodoro Jr. was this waiver by the United States that did not include or exempted foreign military aid to the Philippines in terms of the suspension of U.S. aid. And it also committed to actually assist the Philippines in terms of local manufacturing of defense articles. The Philippines is already planning to incentivize defense manufacturing locally through a bill pending the president's signature that will create a special defense economic zone in the northern Philippine province of Bataan. The United States also committed to provide the Philippines an anti-ship missile system. All these, both Mr. Teodoro and Mr. Hegseth said, is part of deterrence, or what Mr. Hegseth called peace through strength, to counter what he labeled as threats from communist China.
Hey, many thanks for that report on U.S.-Philippines relations. Buena Banal, Metro Manila. Coming up next on East Asia Tonight, derivatives trading in Hong Kong surging to a record, driven by big swings in markets and global uncertainty. Plus, CEO of metal giant Korea Zinc maintains power after defeating its largest investors in a shareholder meeting.
This April, we shine the spotlight on the unknown, the untold, and the unjust. How can we be self-sufficient in food, energy and water? Follow urban farmer Christopher Liao as he takes on the challenge to build a floating farm within a year. On the new season of Growing Wild, Project Castaway. Uncover the forgotten stories beneath Singapore's most iconic landmarks and abandoned sites.
There are hidden ruins, many of them with a military past.
As we reveal the lost secrets and pivotal moments that shaped the nation in Hidden Histories. In rural India, thousands of women are giving up their wombs to make ends meet. But is it worth the sacrifice? Find out why these women undergo unnecessary hysterectomies and how it has changed their lives forever. In Wombless. This April on CMA.
If there is a recession, it's actually a good time for one to gain wealth.
So how can you tell when the time is right to make money from a downturn? Tackling tough interview questions, I put myself to the test.
Share a little bit more.
Plus, how to grow a food business during the fasting month. There's Gen Z's recipe for success. Money Mind, Saturday on CNA.
We're asking you to not buy a car and just take a taxi, take a Grab, wherever you go.
Well, I did try it.
My mum's camera shy, but should seniors like her still be driving? I put some seniors to the test.
You should make the sign bigger. Old man can't see.
To find out if it's time to review rules that allow our seniors on the roads. Talking Point, Sunday on CNA.
Hello again. Good to have your company on East Asia tonight. It is now time for your business news with Roland Lim. And Roland, market volatility apparently that's driving huge volumes in a Hong Kong stock market activity.
That's right, Osali. It's about 3 months in and breaking records. Hong Kong's derivative trading for the year surpassing 2024's record high in less than 3 months. The city's boss reporting that the number of outstanding futures and options contracts reached $22 million so far this year. That's topping the total seen last year. Analysts attributing the sharp increase to the frenzy surrounding Chinese tech firms and the growing use of hedging tools to navigate escalating global economic uncertainties. Hong Kong exchanges and clearing also boosted its derivatives offerings over the last 6 months to meet growing market demand for ways to invest in Chinese assets that reduce portfolio risks. Investors will likely remain hedged against potential market turbulence, with China facing tariff threats from US President Trump. Greater China markets ending the day in the doldrums, though. Shanghai Composite down 0.2%, Shenzhen down by 0.6%. Hang Seng Index 0.65 in the red. The chief of Korea Zinc has successfully maintained his grip on power over the board and his job after defeating the firm's largest investors in a shareholder meeting. The world's top zinc smelter had been embroiled in a shareholder battle since Yangpun, Chaebol, and MBK Partners launched a takeover bid for the company half a year ago. The two stakeholders had sought to add directors after getting support equivalent to 41.3% holdings in the metal giant. But Korea Zinc utilized a technical maneuver that effectively prevented Yangpun from voting its 25.4% stake. Shareholders also moved in favor of Korea Zinc at today's meeting, approving its proposal to cap the board at 19 members. The move prevents the Yangpun MBK alliance from expanding their own slate of directors. Korea Zinc shares closing down nearly 9%, while Yangpun ended 10.4% in the red. Shares of Nippon Steel dipped in Japan following a report that it would pump in billions more in US Steel if the takeover deal goes through. Now, Nippon Steel ending the day 2% lower after slipping as much as 3.98% in trade today. According to news website Semaphore, the Japanese firm offered to boost its investments in revamping aging assets of US Steel to $7 billion. Now, that's higher than the initial $2.7 billion promised in late 2023, when Nippon Steel made a bid for the American steelmaker. The report added that the two companies are in active talks to salvage the $14 billion deal. Executives from Nippon Steel are also set to meet with White House officials in Washington in hopes of securing approval for the acquisition. Last month, US President Trump said he was opposed to a takeover, though he said he did not mind if Nippon Steel took a minority stake in US Steel. Toyota Motor says its global production and sales are up for the second straight month, driven by higher output and strong domestic demand. But uncertainty looms as US President Trump's 25% auto tariffs are due to take effect next week. Global production's up 5.8% on year, driven by production domestically and in China, while production in Europe and North America are down. Overseas sales of the Japanese automaker increased by 2.1% on year, with the Chinese market expanding 15%, while sales in North America declined 6.5% due to a lack of supply of hybrid cars. Now, in Japan, sales are up nearly 30%, partly boosted by the launch of new models and the company recovering from a certification scandal last year. Shares of Toyota ending the day some 4.5% lower as President Trump's 25% levies on foreign-made cars continue to weigh down on sentiment. Taiwan has opened a probe into a major Chinese chipmaker, SMIC, on allegations that it illegally poached Taiwanese workers. It is part of a wider operation into 11 tech firms on the island suspected of illegal talent acquisition. The island's investigation bureau says in a statement that SMIC allegedly opened a branch on the island as a company based in Samoa and attempted to hire local talents. It also noted that the firm operated near Hsinchu City, which is Taiwan's main semiconductor hub and headquarters of TSMC. Officials gave no further details on the suspected SMIC subsidiary. Taiwan does not allow Chinese firms to conduct business activities on the island without formal government approval, and that includes hiring local workers. But Taiwanese authorities report that there are many cases of Chinese firms trying to poach local talent by disguising themselves as Taiwan or foreign companies. The island's investigation bureau said it has opened more than 100 probes into such firms since it established a dedicated task force to look into such cases back in 2020. Consumer prices in Tokyo have climbed more than 2% for the fifth straight month, keeping alive expectations that the Bank of Japan will maintain its rate hike path. Overall inflation at 2.9%, the price of fresh food up more than 12%, and non-fresh food more than 5%. Services up 0.8% on year, and that's its fastest climb since December. However, rice prices are nearly 90% higher on year, this despite the government releasing its stockpiles earlier this month in an attempt to bring down prices. The spike followed a poor summer harvest in 2023 due to high temperatures and a rise in foreign tourists, driving up consumption in restaurants. And that is the latest in business. Oteli.
Thanks so very much for that, Roland. Coming up next on East Asia Tonight, Chinese President Xi Jinping vows deeper cooperation with Bangladesh after a meeting with its chief advisor.
We're in a chaotic moment.
Midnight later tonight here in Thailand, it's too little too late.
And I asked whether there's a political element to it. Nobody can exactly tell you why.
Look, things are never perfect when you're engaged in politics. Each one doing what each one wants.
So what's the United Nations doing amidst this world of supreme chaos?
We're pushing for answers every night on Asia Tonight.
As you can see, everyone is really upping their game in terms of visibility.
The rental cost is a challenge. It's a big risk for us. We can do this, Gen Z.
My mom started here 26 years ago. Whether we make money or not, we still want to be involved here.
A Hari Raya Puasa special, Geylang Bazaar. Is it still worth the hype? Monday on CNA.
On CNA 938, we're open for business bright and early with business, market, and economic news.
Join us on the Morning Report at 8 a.m. as we analyze the biggest stories of the day that matter to you.
From 10 a.m. onwards, we mind your money with finance discussions. Discover the latest in Singapore's food scene on Eat Drink Singapore. And keep a healthy mind and body on the Wellness Hour.
Wrap up your day as we shine the spotlight on the most talked about stories on Singapore today.
And get the pulse
on what's healthy, wealthy and wise with Health Matters and Wealthwise.
CNA 938, news on the move, bringing stories that matter to you. The CNA 938 quiz is back. We have a total of $9,000 worth of grab vouchers to be won. Simply tune in to CNA 938 for the question of the day and listen out for the cue to call. Join the CNA 938 quiz now.
You're watching East Asia Tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. A powerful earthquake rocks Myanmar and Thailand, with aftershocks also felt in Yunnan, China. Bangkok now declared a disaster area. All 6 areas in Myanmar are now under a state of emergency. Wildfires in South Korea are finally contained after a week, but firefighters are still battling to completely stamp out flames in the south. China has a stern warning to the U.S. after the American defense chief calls Beijing, Washington, and Manila's common enemy. President Xi Jinping has vowed to keep China's doors open after meeting global business leaders in Beijing. Amid escalating trade tensions with the U.S., Mr. Xi hailed the role foreign businesses played in China's modernization. In attendance were top executives from firms including FedEx, Standard Chartered, and AstraZeneca. Mr. Xi told these business leaders that international companies have a key responsibility in restoring global order. The meeting took place just before U.S. tariffs on imported cars kick in next week, and just after the Boao Forum and China Development Forum. The forum itself was already part of Beijing's efforts to cast itself as a supporter of private enterprise, in contrast to Washington's America First policies. China's pledge for greater market access also follows data that showed a drop in inbound investment last year, with numbers plunging to their lowest in more than 3 decades. And for more, CNA's Tan Yu-Guan, he joins us live from Shanghai. Yu-Guan, first up, is this Beijing's charm offensive for American companies as Donald Trump doubles down on his tariffs?
Well, certainly it is. What's more, President Xi went beyond just trying to charm those present. He also tried reasoning with them. He went directly for what he knows is important to them, that is China's critical role in their global supply chains. He calls on the CEOs to avoid all kinds of behaviors that would interfere with the safety and stability of those supply chains, and to work with China to maintain those chains, essentially asking them not to pull out. He also reminded the business leaders present of the money to be made in China. He pointed out that China is the world's second largest consumer market, with the largest middle-income population globally. Therefore, the country has immense potential for investment and consumption potential as well. Now, aside from appealing directly to the business leaders present, Mr. Xi also dropped a few rather poetic critiques of the protectionist moves by the governments of other countries. Allow me to recite 2 of those lines in original Mandarin form before translating them simultaneously. The first one is, 吹灭别人的灯并不会让自己更加光明. That is, if you blow out other people's lights, doesn't make you illuminated any better. Now, the next one, a second one is 阻挡别人的路也不会让你自己行得更远, which translated means blocking other people's paths will not allow you to go any further. Now, these are rather polite but rather blistering jabs at the terrorists and the roadblocks that countries like the US has put up against China or Telly.
A great translation there, Yu-Guan. Pretty impressive, I have to say. Now, there is certainly money to be made in China, but China's inbound investments, as we've mentioned, have been falling. So what exactly are business leaders expecting from officials?
Indeed, as you said earlier, official data shows that foreign direct investments have dropped by nearly a quarter year-on-year last year. That's the biggest drop since the 2008 global financial crisis. We did get a hint of what foreign business leaders want from China in the speeches made at the session. During the session, 7 of 40 top executives spoke. They cover a range of sectors and regions. They are the head honchos of FedEx, Mercedes-Benz, pharma giant Sanofi, HSBC, Japan's Hitachi, South Korea's chipmaker SK Hynix, and oil giant Saudi Aramco. According to reports, they expressed appreciation for China's efforts to create a fair and favorable business environment for foreign enterprises. Now, in the context of meetings like these in China, which are rather formal, you could say it's their polite way of saying, well, what you did is great, please do more. Because many foreign business leaders operating in China do raise concerns about unfair practices. They often point to issues like opaque regulations, forced technology transfers, and preferential treatments for state-owned enterprises, all of which they say skew the playing field against foreign players. Indeed, foreign surveys by groups such as the EU Chamber of Commerce in China reveal a significant percentage of foreign companies who express that they feel they face unfair competition and market access barriers that depress their profits. And as profit-making entities, these companies are simply looking for policy clarity so that they can safeguard their investments. Now, in some ways, President Xi did give out all the right signals. He says China will ensure foreign companies will enjoy equal treatment and its government will uphold fair market competition. Oteli?
Hey, thanks very much for that report, Tan Yu Guan, speaking to us from Shanghai. Well, meantime, Chinese President Xi Jinping has vowed to deepen cooperation with Bangladesh following a meeting with Bangladesh's chief advisor, Muhammad Yunus, in Beijing. Mr. Xi added that China will remain a good neighbor, good friend and good partner to Bangladesh based on mutual trust. He also emphasized that Beijing and Dhaka should firmly support each other on core interests and backed Bangladesh on issues including safeguarding national sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity. Now, Mr. Yunus's trip to China marks his first state visit since taking over as interim leader, with experts saying that Dhaka is attempting to court new friends amid frosty ties with neighbouring India. Now, his chief press secretary has lauded the meeting with Mr. Xi as a great success. The 84-year-old Nobel laureate took charge of Bangladesh last August following the ousting of former Premier Sheikh Hasina, who fled to New Delhi after a student-led uprising. India was the biggest benefactor of Hasina's government, and her ouster sent cross-border relations into a tailspin. Dhaka has requested from New Delhi the extradition of Hasina, but has so far been unsuccessful. Mr. Yunus, meantime, has sought a meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reset relations, with both expected to be at the same regional summit in Bangkok next month. Now, Alam Zahira joins us live now from Dhaka to tell us a little bit more about this meeting. So, Alam, what exactly did Mr. Yunus hope to achieve out of this visit to Beijing?
There has been a lot of expectations and aspirations from this visit, particularly in the context of uprising on July 5th. Professor Yunus has been giving serious importance on this visit, and China as well. After the meeting, the much-talked meeting with President Xi Jinping, both the countries, both the leaders have issued a joint statement that was 12-point statements. And from there, we found that China has reaffirmed their commitment on economic broadening, economic cooperation, opening up trade talks and supporting Bangladesh more on infrastructure projects. So these are the very expected and strategically very forward-looking commitments have been made by China. And Professor Yunus also actually looking at strengthening bilateral ties, because after the 5th of August uprising, there have been a lot of discussions about strategic relations with the neighbors and the key partners for the development, infrastructure and economic cooperation, intensifying trade relations. So China, as we all know, that one of the biggest partners, even before the interim government took over, the previous Prime Minister Hasina, she also have been maintaining very strong and strategic relations with China, and that has caused somehow or other a little bit diplomatic strain with our with the neighboring India. But this visit reflects that this is very strategically important, and China is giving more started to intensifying their importance and highlighting and underscoring the importance on Bangladesh. Especially, they made very strong commitment on especially Tista river projects. They wanted to move forward with the river projects. They wanted to start free trade talks. Wanted to initiate a new strategic dialogue with Bangladesh. So along with the Belt and Road Initiative. So these are the main things that which Professor Yunus have been expecting from China. And And it has been perceived that the meeting has realized most of the expectations from the interim government chief advisor on this current leg of visit.
Well, also, Alam, tell us a bit more about the strategic shift, right? Bangladesh pivoting from India to Beijing. What is the significance of it?
Actually, we all know that after the 5th of August uprising, when the interim government took over the responsibility, there are a lot of strain between the relations of India and Bangladesh. And though Bangladesh have been trying to improve the relations, and recently there was a discussion that Professor Yunus have been hoping to take a visit to India, but that has not been happened. And the wide speculations was there that he wanted to visit India even before China. But the significant improvement has not been seen between the two nations, between the two countries. But on 26th of March, on the Independence Day of Bangladesh, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he issued a letter to Professor Yunus, and he also highlighted the importance of improving relations. But the practical scenario is not that very conducive, not very friendly between the two nations. Given the situation, giving importance and highlighting the relations on the China is really strategically important. But I don't see this is a major shift of the foreign policy of Bangladesh, because this is, you can say, a new calibration of the relations between the two countries. Because under the given situation, Bangladesh have been maintaining a very logical foreign policy, that friendship to all, malice to none, that is still prevailing with the foreign policy of Bangladesh. But when there is no significant improvement or move forward with the relations of with India, so definitely China comes on the scene, and China tries. They're also trying to improve and capitalize the situation strategically, and there are a lot of geostrategic issues between the two nations. So definitely, the shift. This is not as it is seen as the shift of the foreign policy, but this is a very common scenario in Bangladesh, that yes, Bangladesh also looking at India to improve relations. At the same time, they're also focusing their on China to strategically bolster on and move forward with the relations ranging from trade, economy, and infrastructure development. And also there are some other issues like the Tista River projects, and there are also some discussions related to military acquisitions as well.
All right, thanks very much for that. Alam Zahirul speaking to us from Dhaka. Now, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has called for national elections to take place on 3rd May, setting a 5-week campaign period in motion. Observers are expecting cost of living pressures to dominate the rallies amid surging housing prices and energy costs.
Our government has chosen to face global challenges the Australian way, helping people under cost of living pressure while building for the future. Because of the strength and resilience that our people have shown, Australia is turning the corner. Now, on the 3rd of May, you choose the way forward.
Australia adheres to 3-year term limits, which means the country must go to the polls by May 17th at the latest to select their new parliament. Mr Albanese, who heads the Labour Party, is seeking to secure a second term in office. He will face off with former policeman Peter Dutton, who leads the opposition coalition. Mr Dutton says the election is a choice on who can better manage the Australian economy, promising to bring the cost of living down in his pitch to voters. He also criticised the incumbent leader, blaming Mr Albanese and the Labour Party for the problems the country currently faces.
Our plan will deliver a stronger economy with low inflation and affordable homes in safer communities. A stronger, safer, better Australia. When it comes to the economy, inflation, energy, housing and security, Labor has simply failed to deliver. And unfortunately, Mr Albanese is too weak and Labor is too incompetent to fix the problems that they've created and that are facing our country today. We can't afford 3 more years like the last 3.
Australians have mixed sentiments over how the incumbent government is performing, but the general consensus is that cost of living and the economy are at the top of their priorities.
As a young person, trying to find a place to rent is very hard, and it seems like every time the lease is up, the rent gets increases, like you have to move out. I'd like to see more initiatives to build houses.
The economy generally, and I think the Labor have done a pretty good job on that. Most of the indicators say they're doing okay. I think that's the most important thing, I think.
Natasha Gutierrez has more on what's top of mind for voters.
Let me start with key issues for this election, the stance of each party regarding these issues, then go into what polls are saying so far. First, as already mentioned, cost of living is really front and center here and will be top of mind for voters. So both parties are focusing on this and campaigning on policies they think will immediately ease voter spending. For Labor, they're focused on three main areas to achieve this: health, education, and childcare. They said they would offer a modest income tax cut, cheaper doctor's visits and lower cost medicines, and student debt relief. They've also said they will put $1 billion into building new childcare services. That's a huge issue and cost for young Australian families. As for the opposition, they've rejected proposed income tax cuts and said they will lower costs by making fuel cheaper and decreasing power bills. One main strategy they have is that they will force gas giants in the country to set aside supply for domestic use that would otherwise be exported, which they believe will cut wholesale prices by 40%. Opposition leader Peter Dutton also said he'd contribute to more money for youth mental health services and support local businesses. And interestingly, he also plans to remove 41,000 public service jobs to reduce what he calls bureaucratic waste, much like the government efficiency messaging of President Trump. It was also mentioned earlier, another key issue in these elections will be energy. Nuclear power is a key policy difference between the two parties. The opposition says building a nuclear energy network will help the transition away from coal, but Labor is focusing on renewables. As for polls, it's going to be a tight race. Surveys have shown the coalition, Labor, maintained a steady lead from the start of the year, but the gap has since narrowed, and most analysis of the polls actually suggest a hung parliament is likely, which has only ever happened twice in Australia's history. But of course, it's best to wait and see how the next 5 weeks play out.
A time now for a break, but coming up on East Asia tonight, the opening ceremony for the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens to begin in the next couple of minutes. Our correspondent will be right in the thick of action.
If there is a recession, it's actually a good time for one to gain wealth.
So how can you tell when the time is right to make money from a downturn? Tackling tough interview questions, I put myself to the test.
Share a little bit more.
Plus, how to grow a food business during the fasting month. There's Gen Z's recipe for success. Money Mind, Saturday on CNA.
In this secret meeting, the prices of new public housing flats are being decided.
Upcoming October 2024 BTO launch.
CNA reveals the inner workings of Singapore's Public Housing Authority.
Most of the things we handle are confidential.
Housing prices have in fact edged up annually, right?
We know the trends. We understand the concerns.
Is it time for a remodel? Singapore's Public Housing revealed. Tuesday on CNA.
In the moments right now in this current stage of my career where things seem scary, so like when I'm taking on newer stuff or stuff that I don't feel too sure about, or things get overwhelming, the best way for me to overcome that feeling is to look back on my younger self and be like, you know what, she would be so stoked to think that we were going to get to do this. Because there are so many things that I've gotten to do that I know she would be losing her mind over, and it's such a nice thing to be able to say and to be able to think about, like, just writing a letter to my ex. I have sitting next to my 11-year-old self and telling her, like, we were on the Times Square billboard. Like, that's crazy, and there's still so many things that I want to do for her and for me, to honor that.
Kong's so-called Super March tourism blitz is paying dividends. Well, the territory has welcomed nearly 900,000 foreign visitors since the beginning of the month. Now, that is a 13% increase from last year. Arts, culture and sports events are all part of the campaign. And the government is targeting 49 million visitors this year, a 10% increase from 2024. That's down from the pre-COVID peak of 65 million visitors in 2018. Now, Hong Kong is hoping its new Kai Tak Sports Park, a $1 billion, 50,000-seater stadium, can bring in those numbers. And starting today, Kai Tak is expecting more than 40,000 fans at the 3-day Hong Kong Sevens rugby tournament. As a matter of fact, CNA's May Wong joins us live now from Hong Kong, where, May, you are right at the Kai Tak Stadium. I believe the atmosphere should be electric. Tell us more, what we can expect.
I'm in the heart of the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens right now, right inside the stadium. And coincidentally as well, the opening ceremony is just about to kick off. Now, this Hong Kong Rugby Sevens is an iconic event, and the Sevens is synonymous with Hong Kong. So when you mention Hong Kong, you will know it's the Sevens. A lot of people have flown in from all over the world. In fact, last year, about 30% of the people attending this event were from overseas, and they contributed more than $60 million to this particular event. Now, this is very special because for the very first time, it's held here in Kai Tak Stadium, which actually was previously held in the Hong Kong Stadium for about 30 years. Now, remember here as well that this event has been happening in Hong Kong since 1976. And at that time, when the first Hong Kong Rugby Sevens happened, it only attracted 3,000 people, and it was only for one day. But today, it has grown to a 3-day event, attracting some 50,000 people on a daily basis. And this time around here at Kai Tak Stadium, well, organizers say it is the biggest event that they've ever sold in terms of more than 90% of the tickets have been snapped up, and they expect over 3 days, 130,000 people to be here coming in and out of this stadium. Now, as you can see right now behind me, it's the Dragon Dance here, iconic as well for Hong Kong, because Hong Kong wants to impress not just the people who are attending, but the people who are watching this particular event, and to showcase this grand stadium that they have just opened only in March 1st of this year. Now, this stadium very quickly is very, very special because this is the first time that they're actually hosting it in this stadium with a retractable roof. For now, you see that the roof is shut. But over the next 2 days, on Saturday and Sunday, organizers will open this up. And so you can just imagine the atmosphere, the excitement, and obviously the enthusiasm, absolutely palpable, and it will hit a top notch over the weekend as well. And I spoke to some people earlier, and let's take a listen to what they told me about the experience that they're expecting.
10,000 more people brings a lot of expectation. I think it's just going to be super exciting. I think it's going to be chaotic in here as well, especially with the roof closed. It's not going to be able to hear a thing.
Well, May, it looks like the opening ceremony is off to a good start, but there were recent events, though, about Kai Tak Stadium, not exactly smooth. What were some of the issues faced?
You're right about that. Well, when they first officially opened on March the 1st, there were obviously some teething problems. For example, when they first hosted a World Snooker Grand Prix event that happened over here, organizers had the people vacate the place before the competition was even over, and that left many people very confused as to what was happening. Yet another incident was allegedly that some ticket touts offered money to bring people in through the back door, and that breached security protocols, and that also got the organizers as well as the Hong Kong administration really angry as well. So, as you can expect, there are teething problems, but the authorities, the organizers for this particular Hong Kong Rugby Sevens say that they have really tried to iron out all those hiccups, and they have been planning this particular event for years, and they're hopefully that this will go on very smoothly. For now, as you can see, everything is really in order. Security was extremely tight as I came in. Back checks were being conducted as well. So all of these now are going very smoothly, and you will see over the next couple of days on how things are going to progress. But here, remember, Hong Kong is definitely hoping that this flagship event is really going to leave a memorable impression for a lot of people traveling into Hong Kong and also for the local residents as well, because they're very proud of this particular stadium, and more importantly, they really want to keep the cash registers ringing because Hong Kong wants to reboot the economy. Last year, they received about 45 million visitors to Hong Kong, but obviously that fell short of what they used to see in terms of tourism figures back in 2018 with about 65 million visitors. So they're hoping that this particular event for the future will be able to attract top-notch mega international events. You can also expect Coldplay to be playing right here in less than about 2 weeks. In about a week or so, Coldplay will be staging 4 concerts here in this Hong Kong stadium, and also other Chinese concerts will take place here, for example, by the likes of JJ Lin as well as Jay Chou as well. So all of these mega events are hopefully going to not just make Hong Kong become one of the most talked about cities in the world, but also to bring back the money that Hong Kong really wants to see.
Towards Sunday, when the finals are being held here, I think it will take everybody to the peak, especially now that they have some understanding about the configuration of the stadium, about the ancillary activities around us, and I think we'll take their mood to the highest point. And I think at the end of the day, they will all leave the stadium, for some of them leaving Hong Kong with very good memory, acknowledging that Hong Kong finally has a place for mega event.
Hong Kong wants to make sure that everyone will walk away talking about the city, and also to come back for even more events in the future.
All right, I'm going to let you return to the opening ceremony, May. Thanks so very much for that. May Wong live from the new Kai Tak Stadium. On that note, it's time to wrap up Friday's edition of East Asia Tonight. Thanks for watching.